Hello there, everybody. Today I will be going over the decks that I have prepared to play in the Core Set 2021 Early Access Streamer event, sponsored by Wizards of the Coast, that will be going on Wednesday. And I will be trying to stream it from about 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. And I have 5 to 6 decks prepared, ready to go, and I will start going over those now. Now, this first deck that I have going on, the main goal that I'm hoping to achieve is to kill somebody with an Aven Gagglemaster enter the battlefield trigger. Mostly because Goose. He's a Goose warrior. I want to kill somebody with a Goose. So that's going to be my plan. But what it does is it's a 5 mana, 4/3 flyer. And when it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life for each creature you control with flying. Now, it does count itself, but the way we're going to kill people with that is with another new card from Core 21 of Veto Thorn of the Dusk Rose that says whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. And then you can pay 3 black creatures you control gain lifelink until end of turn. But, so as long as Veto's on the battlefield, every time you gain life from Gagglemaster, Baneslayer Angel, Healer's Hawk, Speaker of the Heavens, any Revitalize, anything like that, you get to start draining them. So you get kind of a commander style exquisite blood sanguine bond combo going on there. So that's going to be our plan. Now to help us get there, we have some of those cards that I just mentioned. There's Healer's Hawk, 1 mana, 1/1 flying lifelink, always great. There is Indulging Patrician. It's a 1 white and a black, 1/4 flying lifelink, but at the beginning of your end step, if you've gained 3 or more life this turn, each opponent loses 3 life. And then Baneslayer Angel, big flying first strike, lifelink, protection from demons and dragons. And then a card that hasn't been used but has been around for a little while, Ajani Strength of the Pride. His +1 is you gain life equal to the number of creatures you control plus the number of planeswalkers you control. -2 is you get a 2/2 white cat soldier named Ajani's Pridemate with whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. And then we have Speaker of the Heavens. That's a 1 mana Vigilance lifelink, but has tap, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. Activate this ability only if you have at least 7 life more than your starting life total, and you can only activate it anytime you cast a sorcery. And then, kind of one of the bigger payoffs here is Griffinary. So at the beginning of your end step, 2 mana enchantment, if you've gained 3 or more life this turn, create a 2/2 white griffin token with flying. So we have a Revitalize reprint, gain 3 life, draw a card. We have Indulging Patrician, if you've gained 3 life, lose 3 life. We have the Gagglemaster. We have Baneslayer Angel, Healer's Hawk. We have tons of ways to, or Johnny the Strength of the Pride as well. Tons of ways to just gain 3 life randomly. So you get 2 of these on the battlefield. Every time you gain 3 life on your turn, you get to make a 2/2, maybe possibly 2 or more. They're not legendary. You also get to make flyers with the Speaker of the Heavens because you'll be gaining a bunch of life. Indulging Patrician's a flyer, Baneslayer is a flyer, and then Gagglemaster is also a flyer. So it should actually be fairly easy to kill people with this combo. So that's going to be one thing that I'm super excited to try out. The next one, we have an Eerie Ultimatum Reanimator deck. Technically, well, not technically, they are the only white cards in the deck, but we have a decent amount of fixing for that. But essentially what this one is use a Boreal Grazer as a bit of a ramp card, Mire Triton, Timuret Calls the Dead, Cavalier of Thorns, all ways to kind of get things into the graveyard. And then there's Blood for Bones and Eerie Ultimatum to get all these creatures back. The hope is you can get Eerie Ultimatum and have Massacre Girl and Massacre Worm in the graveyard and kind of machine gun down your opponent depending on what all they have on the battlefield. So if those of you that don't know, Massacre Worm is when it enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2 until the end of turn. But Whenever a creature an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, that player loses 2 life. So if you can get these two on the battlefield at the same time, Massacre Girl's triggers go off, Massacre Worm's triggers go off, tons of things die, tons of things get triggered, and you can hopefully kind of combo out your opponent that way. There's also Archfiend's Vessel, another card from M21. That's a 1-mana 1/1 lifelink, but if he enters the battlefield, if it entered from your graveyard, or you cast it from your graveyard, exile it, and if you do, create a 5/5 demon creature with flying. Seems pretty strong. With Blood for Bones and Eerie Ultimatum, there's plenty of ways to bring it back. Plenty of ways to get them into the graveyard with Temeret Calls the Dead and Mire Triton and Cavalier of Thorns. So it's a pretty straightforward plan, but I'm excited to see if this works. Massacre Worm and Massacre Girl just seem like very, very good friends with all that kind of stuff. Then, for some of you that know my channel, you know Dr. Durgan, aka Dracuseth, and yes, I said that the way that I said it. He's my best bud. Me and him, we go way back. Since he's been printed, I've been trying to make him work any way that I possibly can. Now, unfortunately, they did reprint Containment Priest, so this deck might not work as well as I'm hoping. Same with the Reanimator deck, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. So this one is still a Reanimator deck, but it's going a different direction with it. This one is mainly focused on Liliana, Waker of the Dead. So it's a 4-mana, 4 loyalty Planeswalker. +1, each player discards a card. Each opponent who can't loses 3 life. -3, target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your number of cards in your graveyard. That's even better. I thought it was just creature. And then -7, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of combat on your turn, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste. I'm pretty sure people are sleeping on this. People saw this Liliana and was like, oh, it's terrible. This isn't playable. There's no way. Which, honestly, I think this is one of the stronger Planeswalkers in the set. Like, having the each player discard and then having a Croxa on the field, technically, with her around, feels really strong. Making sure that she can protect herself by just having cards in your graveyard also seems strong. And the emblem that you get with the ultimate being a better version of this card right here, Bond of Revival, that seems crazy. Like, even if you're able to kill their things or they have to chump or whatever, just take it. It's yours now. You can have it. And that's every single turn. And she only takes, 2 extra turns to get to that ultimate, which isn't bad at all. So this game plan here is to kind of make sure that the opponent is empty-handed. We have Croxa, we have Yarok, we have Liliana, Yarok's Fenlurker, sorry. So all of those make the opponent discard and get that out of there. Also get stuff into our graveyard with Liliana. Then we have Mire Triton, Temeret Calls the Dead. Both of those are other ways to get things into the graveyard. And then we have, Dr. Durgan, we have Massacre Worm, and then Terror of the Peaks, which is something that I'm also excited to play with, especially since it's not legendary. This is 5 mana, 5/4 flyer. Spells your opponent's cast that target Terror of the Peaks cost an additional 3 life to cast. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Terror of the Peaks deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target. So have this on the battlefield. You play your 2-mana Croxa. They take 6. And then they take another 3 possibly. You layer Dracuseth, or Dr. Durgan. Take 7, then whatever you're dealing. Massacre Worm, take 6, then whatever you're dealing. Even, the 2 damage off the Temeret Calls the Dead or the Mire Triton. Seems like it can be a pretty important thing. So even reanimating this feels pretty strong, but on a curve, you're hitting them for 6 or 7 with a lot of things and doing everything on top of that. So this is my version of the Reanimator deck going forward, featuring Dr. Durgan himself. Now, this next one, honestly, I'm excited for all of these decks, except for one, but I'll kind of get to that. And it's not that I'm not excited for it, it's just kind of basic, but like I said, we'll get to that. So, The plan with this one is to abuse 9 lives, which 9 lives is a 3 mana enchantment, have hexproof, that says if a source would deal damage to you, prevent that damage and put an incarnation counter on 9 lives. When there are 9 or more incarnation counters on 9 lives, exile it. When it leaves the battlefield, lose the game. Now, originally I was thinking of a way to kind of donate it to an opponent and make them lose that way. But unfortunately, in standard, there's only one way to do that, and it's not very reasonable. So my whole plan with it then is, well, what can we do to either stop the trigger or keep taking counters off of it? Well, the good way to do that is Soul Diviner. Soul Diviner says remove a counter from an artifact, creature, land, or planeswalker. Oh, never mind. It doesn't take these off. So that might not actually work how I'm thinking. Okay, but that's fine. It combos out with everything else. So the ways to actually stop it then are Discontinuity and Tail's End. Now, Tail's End, it's been around. It's counter target activated ability, triggered ability, or legendary spell. So with this hitting the 9 lives, you can just stop the trigger of when the 9 lives leaves the battlefield to lose. And then there's also Discontinuity that costs 6, 3 and 3 triple blue, but it's an instant. But as long as it's your turn, it only costs 1 and a single blue. And all it does, in the turn. Everything on the stack, everything that happens, gone. So when this goes to trigger, just stop it. No more. So it has that kind of same effect with Tail's End, that you can just stop it and not have to worry about it. So the other things that Soul Diviner does in this deck is it's also a Doom Foretold, Luminous Broodmoth kind of loopy deck. So with Luminous Broodmoth and Doom Foretold, we can sacrifice things like Hunted Witness, bring it back with a Soul Diviner, get the flying counter off of Hunted Witness, draw a card, sack it again to the Doom Foretold, bring it back, and just loop it that way. Same thing with Yarok Svenlurker and Woestrider. So it's kind of like a backup mid-range plan to just eventually grind the opponent out with Doom Foretolds and Luminous Broodmoths and all that. And then also have this, not really win condition, but it saves us for a while, and then we can just, in time, find what we need to stop it. And then we have a Selesnya deck that originally started, honestly, as a Bant Simic Ascendancy deck, but instead I realized that Simic Ascendancy was the only blue card, and doing the token route just might end up being better anyway. So the plan for this deck is to have Conclave Mentor, which says if 1 or more 1/1 counters would be put on a creature you control, put that many +1 instead. And then whenever Conclave Mentor dies, you gain life equal to its power. So very, very similar to Winding Constrictor, except it has the upside of when it dies, you gain a bunch of life, hopefully. Now, the difference is there are quite a few things that just put counters on everything. We have Basri Ket, that the +1 puts a 1/1 counter onto one target creature. It gains indestructible. Cool. -2, whenever 1 or more non-token creatures attack this turn, create that many 1/1 soldier tokens that are tapped and attacking. Awesome. And then a -6, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 soldier creature token, then put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. And it's a 3-drop planeswalker, starts at 3, goes up by 1, unless you want to use the minus, but once you get that ultimate, counters are being put on there every single turn. And even if you're not, put a +1/+1 on something, make it indestructible, or get a bunch of tokens on the battlefield by attacking with a bunch of creatures. Now, the other two things we have is Pledge of Unity. It's a 3-mana instant, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, then gain life for each creature you control. Awesome. Ajani the Greathearted has a -2 of put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each other planeswalker you control, which helps Basri. And then we have Basri's Lieutenant. It's when it enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control, and then When Basri's lieutenant or another creature you control dies, if it had a 1/1 counter on it, create a 2/2 knight with vigilance. So this is kind of our wrath protection here. We put a bunch of counters on everything, get to multiplier counters, and then if they board wipe, we just get a bunch of 2/2 knights to replace it, and hopefully restart the process all over again. And then for the token makers, we have Raise the Alarm, March of the Multitudes, Cub Warden, and Elspeth's Son's Nemesis. All great ways to power out a bunch of tokens quickly, and then also Castle Ardenvale. And then we just start pumping them up with Ajani, Pledge of Unity, Basri, March of the Multitudes, get more counters out, Raise the Alarm, all this crazy stuff. I'm pretty excited for this. I think it'll work out pretty well. And then, look, I absolutely love Ugin the Spirit Dragon. And I think this deck is going to be a lot of fun. My only thing is, it's just kind of boring. And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes boring is fine. Sometimes your whole plan is to just ramp into Ugin the Spirit Dragon turn 4 and say, what do you got, opponent? And more often than not, that's what's going to happen here. We have 4 Grazer, 4 Incubation Druid, 4 Cultivate, so glad that that's back, 4 Migration Path, 4 Solemn Simulacrum, and even Ugin the Ineffable, and 4 Beanstalk Giant. All things that are just ramping up to Ugin the Spirit Dragon. And then you have Stone Coil because very powerful finisher that doesn't die when you minus Ugin to anything. Same with Solemn Simulacrum. Simulacrum? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm saying that wrong. Sad Robot. We'll just call it Sad Robot. But yeah, so the only things that really die if you minus Ugin early is Grazer and Incubation Druid, but honestly, I think that's not a huge deal. But you have Ugin that makes a bunch of tokens, which end up drawing you cards. Ugin the Ineffable. You have Stonecoil Serpent that survives. You have Solemn that survives. So turn 4 Ugins should not be hard at all with this deck, and I don't know too many decks that can handle that unless Flash becomes very prevalent, but we'll see what happens there. But all in all, that is, you get to see a little bit of that there. That is the decks that I will be covering on the early access stream sponsored by Wizards on Wednesday, June 24th. So make sure and check that out, and I will see you all later. Thanks for hanging out.